Story 1. My name's Casey. I'm 28 now, living outside of Richmond, Virginia. But this happened when I was 23. I wasn't some stoner kid seeing things, and I wasn't alone either. It was July, hot enough that the air inside the car felt like a warm mouth, even with the windows down. My friend Liam and I had just spent the day at Warped Tour in Maryland, and we were riding back with his mom because neither of us had cars yet. She was driving. We were half asleep in the back. That buzzing, exhausted kind of quiet after you've screamed your head off in the sun all day. The highway was 2 lanes, a tree line on both sides, and a low grass median in the middle. We were coming around this slow curve, not even dark yet, just that blue hour where everything looks hazy and the cicadas are screaming. I was looking out the window, half zoning, when something black came tearing out of the trees on the opposite side of the highway. I didn't even register what I was seeing at first. Liam's mom slammed the brakes hard enough that I jolted forward and the seatbelt bit into my collarbone. It wasn't a deer. It wasn't a dog. It wasn't anything that should have been there. And the second I really saw it, something in my brain just rejected it. This thing, it was tall, like tall, taller than a man but hunched, its arms hanging down so far they almost touched the ground. Its hair was long and black, stringy, like wet seaweed plastered to its head and shoulders. It moved so wrong, its knees bending the wrong way as it jumped over the median, landing hard on its back legs, then springing again without using its front limbs, like a grotesque kangaroo. Its head jerked side to side and it made this clicking noise, fast, like a broken camera shutter, as it landed on our side of the road. I remember Liam screaming, "What the fuck is that?" and his mom yelling, "Jesus Christ!" slamming the brakes so hard the car fishtailed, tires squealing against the asphalt. I was pressed against the window, staring at it as it galloped. Galloped is the only word. Across the road in front of us, heading toward the tree line on our side. It moved in these jarring, puppet-like motions, like each limb was controlled by a different person who wasn't quite in sync. The smell that came off it was like hot metal and wet dog, but sharper, almost like blood. It didn't even look at us. It didn't care we were there. It was just crossing, but the way it moved and the noise it made, it was like it wasn't part of this place, like it didn't belong here. We sat there, dead stopped in the middle of the highway, engine idling, all of us breathing like we'd just run a mile. I looked at Liam. His face was white, eyes wide, mouth hanging open. His mom kept muttering, "Oh my God, oh my God." I didn't even realize I was crying until I felt the tears hit my shirt. I wasn't crying like sad crying, but the way you cry when your body doesn't know what else to do. We sat there for maybe a minute, maybe longer. I remember the cicadas stopping, like the whole world went quiet, and then starting up again all at once. Liam said it again, softer this time. "What the fuck was that?" And nobody answered him. Because what were we supposed to say? His mom finally pulled the car to the side of the road, hands shaking on the wheel. She turned around, looking at us, and she was pale too, her eyes wild. She said, "Did you see that? Did you both see that?" I nodded and Liam nodded, and none of us said anything else for a while. We just sat there, the car clicking as it cooled, headlights shining into the trees where the thing had disappeared. I can still see it in my head, clear as day, the way it jumped, the way its arms dangled, the way its head twitched when it landed, that clicking noise. I've seen deer get hit by cars. I've seen bears, coyotes, big dogs running across roads. This was none of that. We started driving again after maybe 5 minutes, but we didn't turn on the radio and nobody talked. I kept looking out the window, waiting for it to come back, waiting to see it standing in the trees, watching us. We got home and nobody told anyone else. Liam's mom made us promise not to tell his younger brother because she didn't want to scare him. But that night, me and Liam sat on his porch, just looking out into the darkness, both of us still shaking. He finally said, "Do you think it was like an alien?" And I didn't know what to say, because I don't know. I still don't know. But the way it moved and the way it didn't look at us, the way it didn't belong, it felt like something that wasn't supposed to be here, or something that wasn't from here at all. Sometimes I think it was something that escaped from somewhere, a government lab or something. Sometimes I think it was something that slipped through from somewhere else, just for a moment, crossing our road the way a deer crosses, going somewhere we can't see, back into the dark. I know how this sounds. I know people will read this and think I'm crazy or making it up, but I swear on everything I have, on my mother's grave, that it happened. We all saw it, we all heard it, and I haven't driven down that highway since. Story 2. I don't usually talk about this, but I'm 58 now, and some nights, it's the only thing I think about before I fall asleep. I live outside Atlanta these days, but I grew up in Addis, Ababa, Ethiopia, in the 60s, when my dad was still in the government. If you grew up in Ethiopia back then, you'd know the military and politicians were everywhere, and my family was right in the middle of that world. I was 9, and my best friend was Gabriel. His dad was a general, and mine was the Minister of Interior, so we both lived in these big compounds with high walls and guards with rifles, patrolling day and night. It was just normal for us. One afternoon, we were in my backyard after school. I still remember the smell of the dust and eucalyptus trees, and the way the sun felt hotter than it should have for that time of year. We were just playing with some old tennis balls we had, throwing them against the wall and trying to catch them before they bounced twice. He was laughing, telling me about how his older brother let him ride in the front seat of their new Peugeot that morning. I turned to get the tennis ball that had rolled near the hibiscus bush, maybe 5 steps away, and when I turned back, he was gone. I mean gone. I thought he was hiding, so I called out, "Gabriel, come on, I saw you." Nothing. I started checking around the yard. We had these little storage sheds by the back. I checked those, nothing. I checked under the table we sometimes used for playing cards, nothing. Then I started shouting for him, and one of the guards came jogging over, rifle bouncing against his shoulder, asking what happened. By the time the sun started setting, there were about 15 people in our yard, including my dad, looking under every bush, in the garden, even in the drainage pipes. They even opened the water tanks. Nothing. By the time it was dark, my mom was holding me in the living room while I was crying, telling me it wasn't my fault. I remember looking out the window at the wall where we were playing, with the guards' flashlights sweeping back and forth over it. The next morning, there were police at our gate. The whole neighborhood was being searched, house by house. They showed everyone a picture of Gabriel in his white school shirt and brown pants. By the afternoon, it was on the radio. They even brought in a helicopter to search the hills outside the city. Every day, I'd see soldiers and police in the yard, dogs sniffing around, people looking in wells and storm drains. My dad would come home late, looking tired, and wouldn't say anything. A week passed, then a month, then 2. I would sit in the backyard sometimes, hoping maybe Gabriel would just walk back in and tell me it was a prank. But I knew it wasn't. People started to whisper about kidnapping, or that he had been taken because of his dad's position. But the walls around our yard were 10 feet high, with broken glass cemented into the top, and guards with rifles patrolling. Nobody could have come in or out without someone seeing. 4 months later, in the middle of the night, I woke up to shouting outside. I looked out the window and saw car headlights in the yard and shadows moving around. I heard my dad's voice, panicked, and then my mom came in and told me to stay in the room. But I went to the window and peeked through the curtain. That's when I saw him. Gabriel was standing in the middle of the yard, barefoot, wearing the same white shirt and brown pants from the day he disappeared. His clothes were clean, like they'd just been washed, but his hair was longer, and he was thin, with dark rings under his eyes. He was staring straight ahead, not blinking, not moving, while people were running around him, calling his name. My dad tried to hug him, but Gabriel didn't react. He didn't even flinch. His eyes were open, but it was like he wasn't there. When they finally got him to sit down, he still didn't say anything. He just kept staring. They took him inside, and the doctor came, and I was in the hallway watching as they tried to talk to him. His mom arrived later, screaming when she saw him and begging him to speak, but he didn't. For 3 days, Gabriel didn't talk, eat, or sleep. He just sat there staring ahead, sometimes blinking slowly, but nothing else. I tried to see him, but my dad wouldn't let me. On the 4th day, he started screaming in the middle of the night. I could hear it from my room, high-pitched like an animal, and it didn't stop for a long time. They said he started saying something in a language nobody understood. He would point at the ceiling and shake his head. They had to sedate him. When he woke up, he was different. He would walk around, but he wouldn't look at people, and he wouldn't talk about where he had been. He wouldn't play with me, wouldn't even look at me. One day I managed to sneak into the room when he was alone, sitting on the bed looking out the window. I asked, "Gabriel, where did you go?" He didn't answer, but he turned his head and looked at me, really looked at me for the first time. His eyes were wet and his lips moved, like he was trying to say something, but he just whispered something so quietly I had to lean in. He said, "They're still watching." I asked him who, but he shook his head violently, and then he started crying, rocking back and forth, holding his head in his hands. I ran out of the room, and that was the last time I saw him. His family left the country a few months later, moved to Europe, and I never heard about Gabriel again. Story 3. I've never really told anyone about this, not even my wife, because I don't want to sound like I'm crazy. I'm a diesel mechanic. I live in Pahokee, Florida, been here most of my life, and this happened when I was 19, back in 2004. I don't really care if anyone believes me or not. I know what I saw, and I know what it did to me. It was a Friday night, sticky hot even with the breeze off Lake Okeechobee. I was with my cousin Rico and my buddy Tyler. We were out on Rico's old flat-bottom John boat, catfishing. We tied off near the South Rim Canal, away from the few lights on the levee. We had a cooler of Dr. Pepper's, a lantern swinging from a rope, and chicken livers stinking up the whole boat. It was around 1 a.m. when it started. We were just talking trash. Tyler was telling this stupid story about a girl he was seeing when the lantern started swaying hard, but there wasn't any wind. I noticed the water too, how it went from rippling to dead still, like it froze. It was so quiet you could hear the insects stop. That's the first thing that got me, the quiet. Rico turned down the radio and we all just sat there. I remember my mouth felt dry, like the air changed. Then Tyler pointed up and all he said was, "Bro." I looked up and there was this light in the sky, maybe the size of a grapefruit if you held it out at arm's length. It was bright, but not like a spotlight or a helicopter. It was this orange color, but it shifted to this electric blue and then green, like the colors were alive. It wasn't high up like a plane. It felt closer, maybe a few hundred feet up. "Is that a drone?" Rico said, but it wasn't. It moved in this smooth sideways slide, then stopped, then shot the other way. No sound, no wind, nothing. It would hover, drop a little, jerk sideways again, stop. We were just standing there on the boat, necks craned, breathing hard, not even talking. I remember hearing my heartbeat in my ears. Then it shot straight down, not fast but steady, and stopped maybe 30 feet above the water, off to our right. The glow lit up the water around it like you dropped a glow stick in a bucket. I could see the ripples glowing under it, and everything smelled like burnt air. This metallic tang that made me feel like puking. "Dude, what the hell is that?" Tyler whispered. And then it just pulsed, like it was breathing, and there was this hum. I can't describe the sound. It wasn't loud, but it felt like it was inside my head, buzzing in my teeth, deep in my chest. Rico dropped to the floor of the boat, hands over his ears, screaming, "Make it stop!" over and over. Me and Tyler couldn't move. I felt like my whole body was pinned, like when you get sleep paralysis. But we were standing. I was trying to look away, but my eyes were locked on it, tearing up. I couldn't blink. It felt like the light was pressing into me, like it was looking at me, through me, pushing into my head. Then everything went white. I don't remember falling, but when I could see again, I was on my back on the floor of the boat, and Tyler was next to me, shaking me, saying, "Bro, get up, we gotta go." The boat was rocking hard and Rico was screaming, pointing at the water. I looked over and the light was gone, but the water was still glowing in this spot, swirling, like something big had just gone under. Then it just faded and the sound stopped, and everything was quiet again, except Rico crying. Tyler started the motor and we just got out of there, hauling ass back to the launch, not even pulling in our lines. I didn't look back. I remember the ride back felt like it took forever, even though it couldn't have been more than 10 minutes. None of us spoke, and Rico was curled up, rocking, whispering something under his breath. When we got back to the dock, We sat in Tyler's truck, windows down, trying to breathe, shaking. Rico wouldn't stop saying, "They saw me. They saw me," over and over until Tyler yelled at him to shut up. I didn't say anything. I just sat there looking at the lake, trying to understand what we saw. That whole night after I got home, I couldn't sleep. I kept hearing that hum, feeling it in my chest like it was still in me. I noticed this small mark on my wrist, like a perfect circle burn, but it didn't hurt and it faded after a few days. I don't know what that was and I don't know what it did to us. We never went fishing at night again, not on that lake. Tyler moved to Tampa a year later and Rico won't talk about it at all. He'll just shut down if I bring it up, says he doesn't remember. But I remember. I see it when I close my eyes, how the light moved, how it felt like it was alive. People talk about UFOs like there's some lights in the sky you see from far away, but they don't tell you how it feels when it's close, how it feels when it looks at you. It's like you're nothing, like you're an ant under a magnifying glass, and you can't move, can't look away, can't think. I still don't know if it took us or if we lost time. I checked the time when we got back, and it was almost 3 a.m., but it felt like the whole thing was only minutes. I don't know. I don't talk about it because people don't want to hear about stuff like this, and I don't want to think about it too much. Story 4. I grew up in a small dead-end town in central Pennsylvania, the kind where the street lights flicker and everyone's dad works at the same factory. My name's Dan, and I was 15 when this happened. I lived in a split-level house with aluminum siding, across from an empty field that led into the woods, the kind of woods that get pitch black even when the rest of the sky is clear. It was December 29th, 2001, and the cold was so sharp you could feel it in your teeth. I remember because we were supposed to hang out at my friend Eric's, but he was grounded, so we decided to take our bikes down the block to the woods by the creek and the frozen runoff pond, just to mess around before it got too dark. We left at exactly 6 p.m. because my mom shouted from the kitchen, "Don't come back late, Dan. I'm making chili." We just laughed and left. It's weird the way memories stick. I remember Eric found this rusted fence pole and was smashing the edge of the iced-over pond while I tossed small rocks across the ice, watching them skip before they fell in. I don't know why it felt so heavy all of a sudden, like the air was too thick to breathe, but I remember looking over at Eric and seeing him freeze mid-swing, looking past me. "What?" I asked him. He didn't answer, just looked over my shoulder, eyes wide. I turned and it was nothing. Just the frozen grass, the tree line, the sky getting that weird deep blue before night. But then I heard footsteps, slow, like someone heavy was stepping on frozen leaves just behind me. "Eric, do you hear that?" He whispered, "Yeah." I didn't think, I just ran toward him, and that's when everything went wrong. The pond was frozen solid again, no cracks, no holes where Eric had been smashing it, like it had never been touched. I felt like I'd been punched in the chest. I looked back, expecting to see someone in the trees, but it was empty. Silent except for my own breath. "Dude, what time is it?" Eric's voice was shaky. I pulled out my Nokia brick, and it said 8:15 p.m. "What the hell?" I whispered. "We just got here." Eric kept saying, "No way. No way. It was 6. It was 6, man." I could hear his teeth chattering, but he wasn't cold. That was when we saw it. At first I thought it was a shooting star, but it was too bright and it moved too slow, like it was burning across the entire sky, horizon to horizon. And it made this noise, a low, vibrating hum you could feel in your ribs, almost like it was inside your head. We just ducked down by the bushes, clutching each other like little kids. I remember Eric whispering, "It's gonna crash. It's gonna crash." But it didn't. It just kept going, and then it was gone, and the sky was empty again. We were shaking, but we couldn't look away, because there was this one star, brighter than the others, and it started moving. Not fast, just gliding slowly across the sky, then stopping dead, like it was watching us. I wanted to run, but my legs wouldn't move. Eric started crying, this quiet sobbing that made me feel like I was gonna puke. "It's looking at us," he said. I wanted to tell him to shut up, but I couldn't even speak. Then out of nowhere, everything went black. I don't remember falling. or blinking or anything. Just black. When I could see again, we were standing in the middle of the field by the tree line, our bikes laying in the frozen grass like we'd dropped them. My mouth tasted like metal, and my nose was bleeding, dripping onto my jacket. Eric was lying on the ground, curled up, breathing fast. His jeans were wet, and I think he pissed himself. We didn't say anything. We just grabbed our bikes and rode back to my house as fast as we could, our breath fogging in the cold, tires skidding on patches of black ice. When we got to my driveway, my mom was standing on the porch with her arms crossed. She looked pissed. "Where the hell have you been?" she yelled. "It's not even that late," I said. "It's 10:30, Dan." I didn't know what to say. I just looked at Eric, and he looked at me, and we both knew we couldn't tell her what happened. I still don't know what happened in those 4 hours. I don't remember seeing anything else, but for weeks after, I had these dreams where I was floating above the woods, looking down at myself and Eric lying in the snow, and there were lights around us, bright, too bright to look at, in shadows moving across the snow. Eric moved away the next summer. We never really talked about it again. I tried once, a few years later, when we reconnected on Facebook, and he just blocked me. Story 5. I used to think people who saw UFOs were a little off, to be honest. That was before that night on Route 23. I was living in a crappy second-floor apartment above a laundromat in rural Illinois back in '96. I was 23, delivering pizzas for a dying chain that paid under the table so I could keep my tips. The kind of job you get stuck in when you can't figure out college and don't want to move back home. It was around 8:30, maybe 9, and I was heading back after a delivery to an old trailer park outside of town. I remember it was cold enough to see my breath when I got out, but the sky was clear. One of those nights where you can see stars, but only if you get away from the strip mall lights. I was driving down the highway, heater busted, smelling like cheese and stale marinara, when I noticed 3 lights above the tree line, spaced out almost perfectly. I figured it was planes lining up for the regional airport, but they were too bright and too still. I didn't think much of it, just kept glancing because something felt off. Then the middle light started moving up. I remember the way my stomach dropped, like missing a step on the stairs. It was slow, but it was deliberate, moving into a triangle formation. I rolled down my window, trying to listen for helicopter blades, but it was dead silent except for the wind and my tires on the road. I remember thinking, I'm seeing something I'm not supposed to see. It moved higher, and the lights started pulsing faintly like breathing. I slowed down, hazard lights on, barely any cars out that night, and just watched it hover. It felt like it was miles away, but it also felt like it was right above me, like it was aware of me watching it. I pulled over, turned off the engine. The silence was heavy, pressing on my chest. I stood outside my car, gravel crunching under my shoes, just watching. Then I saw the lights begin to shift, rotating, but the shape held. It tilted, and I swear I saw the stars blink out behind it, like it was solid, blocking them as it moved. "Holy shit," I whispered to myself, though it came out more like a prayer. That's when it started moving toward me. It didn't rush. It just glided, almost lazy, but it closed the distance way too fast for how slow it looked. The lights grew brighter, but not in a glare, more like they were inspecting. I could see a faint outline now, darker than the sky, almost like a thick shadow in the shape of a triangle, with the 3 lights at each point. I wanted to get back in the car, but my legs wouldn't move. It stopped above the highway, maybe 100 feet up, directly over me. I could feel something in the air, like the static before a lightning strike. My hair was standing up on my arms, and then everything went quiet. No wind, no bugs, nothing. I didn't even hear my own breathing, and I realized I couldn't move. My eyes were watering, blinking rapidly, but I couldn't move my arms, couldn't turn my head. It felt like my chest was being pressed down, but there was no pain, just this heavy, cold pressure. That's when I noticed the lights weren't just lights. They had this shimmer around them, like heat coming off pavement, but it was cold and I could feel it. A breeze hitting my face even though the air was dead still. It was like something was probing, searching, right through me. Then it flashed, a blinding white pulse, like a camera flash, but stronger, and for a split second, I saw everything around me lit up. The trees, the empty road, my car, my own breath in the air like a frozen cloud. And in that white light, I saw something else. Shapes inside the triangle, moving, like shadows shifting against a brighter light behind them. I couldn't see them clearly, but they were there. And then it was gone. The lights shot straight up, no sound, no air displacement, just a blur, and they were stars again. The sound came back in a rush, the wind, the highway hum, my car's engine ticking as it cooled. My knees gave out, and I fell against the car, shaking so bad I thought I'd puke. I checked my watch. I had been there for maybe 10 minutes, but it felt like an hour. I got back in, turned the key with shaking hands and drove back to the store, gripping the wheel so tight my knuckles were white. I kept checking the sky through the windshield the whole way, terrified it would come back. When I got back, I clocked in late. My manager, Don, was smoking out back, and he gave me this look. "You good, man?" he asked, flicking his cigarette away. "Yeah," I lied. "Just had to pull over a sec." I didn't tell anyone for a long time. Who the hell would believe a broke pizza driver in a rusted-out Chevy saying he saw a triangle in the sky freeze him on the highway? I didn't even believe it myself, replaying it over and over. I thought I must have hallucinated it from exhaustion, or it was some military thing. But that night, I went home and turned on the TV to distract myself, flipping through channels until I landed on the Sci-Fi channel, and they were playing this special about UFO sightings. They showed footage of these exact triangle lights, pulsing, moving in the sky, hovering, and people describing the same pressure, the same silence. I just sat there on my futon, shaking, watching the screen. I don't know what it was. I don't know if it was alien, military, or something else. But I know it was real, and I know I wasn't supposed to see it. Story 6. I didn't think much of the dock out at the quarry, just a half-rotted stretch of planks locals used to fish or drink when it was too hot to sit in our trailers. I've lived in this small Arkansas town my whole life, and it's the kind of place where you know what a coyote sounds like, what a meth lab smells like, and how to mind your business when you hear screaming at night. The quarry is about a 20-minute walk from my trailer, and that October night, the air was cold enough to see your breath when you laughed. I was 17, maybe a week out from Halloween, and we were supposed to meet up to shoot off some fireworks we'd bought off a guy who worked at the gas station. Just dumb stuff, bottle rockets and Roman candles. I got there first holding a plastic bag with 2 liters of soda and a bag of chips and sat down on the dock, letting my boots hang over the water. My buddy Cal showed up next, rolling a cigarette with shaking hands like he always did, saying his stepdad was out of jail again. "Check the sky tonight, man," Cal said, lighting up and squinting. "Stars are nuts." I looked up, and yeah, they were bright, like tiny needles pricking at the black. But I wasn't really thinking about it. We were still waiting on the others, sitting there, passing his cigarette back and forth, the water black as oil under us. There was this moment, though, where it all went dead quiet. The bugs stopped, the wind stopped, and I couldn't hear the gravel road in the distance. That's when I saw it. It wasn't a beam of light or a big silver disc like in movies. It was like this glowing ball, bluish-gray, but it had this weird halo around it that shimmered with rainbow colors, almost like those gas puddles you see on concrete. But it moved, rippling like heat waves. The halo wasn't just a circle either. It looked like it had lines, like how they show magnetic fields in science books. It was floating above the tree line on the far side of the quarry, maybe 100 feet above it, pulsing a little, slow, steady. "Cal, you seeing this?" I asked, but my voice sounded wrong, too flat. "Yeah," he whispered, standing up, eyes wide. "Man, what the hell is that?" I don't know why, but I stood up too, like it would help me see it better. The thing started moving, not fast, but drifting from east to west in a slow, wavy path, the halo around it bending like a soap bubble, but holding together. It wasn't big, maybe the size of a pickup truck, but it didn't make a sound, not even the air moving. It felt like the whole place was holding its breath. Then it stopped, just hovering, and I felt something, like a buzz in my teeth and the back of my neck prickling. The rainbow field around it flared, like a shimmer going across it, and it dropped lower, maybe 20 feet, and I could see the water under it rippling out in a circle. "Cal, we should go," I said, but I couldn't move. It was like my legs were made of concrete. Cal's mouth opened and closed, and I heard him choking, like trying to get words out, but nothing was coming. Then the light changed. It went from bluish gray to a pale white, so bright it hurt to look at it, and I covered my eyes but could still see it through my fingers. It felt like it was inside my head, vibrating through my bones, this low hum that made my stomach twist. The halo around it was spinning, slow at first, then faster, and the air smelled like metal and burnt hair. Then I felt it. Something was in my head, but it wasn't like a voice. It was like a cold hand pressed against the inside of my skull, rooting around. And I could feel this pressure in my temples, like something was pulling memories out and flipping through them. It was like being half awake in a nightmare, watching your worst moments while something else was watching with you. Cal fell to his knees, clutching his head, screaming, and that's when the light got brighter. I saw him lift off the dock, maybe 2 feet, like something was pulling him up by the chest, his boots kicking at the air. His scream was thin, high-pitched, like a rabbit caught in a trap, and I could smell piss and something else, something like blood. I wanted to run, but I couldn't move, and then I felt something in my ears pop, and everything went dead silent again. The light flickered, and I saw Cal drop back onto the dock, hitting it so hard it cracked. The light stayed there, hovering, the halo spinning so fast it was a blur. And then, it shot straight up. No noise, no wind, no warning. It was there, and then it wasn't, like someone hit fast forward on reality. I was left blinking at the black sky, stars looking dull, the smell of burnt hair still in my nose, the dock creaking under us. Cal wasn't moving. I crawled over to him, shaking him, saying his name, but he was breathing, eyes open, staring at nothing. His nose was bleeding and his pants were wet, and he kept whispering, "Don't let them in," over and over. I tried to pull him up, but his legs weren't working, so I dragged him off the dock and onto the gravel, scraping him up, but he didn't even flinch. I looked up once, just once, to see if it was coming back, but the sky was just the sky, empty, quiet, like nothing had happened. I don't know how long it took me to drag him back to the road, but eventually a truck came by, and the guy driving it stopped when he saw us. I couldn't even explain, couldn't get the words out, just kept looking back at the quarry like it would be there again. Cal didn't talk for days, wouldn't even look at me. When he finally did, he just said, "They're still looking," and then he moved away with his mom, and I never saw him again. I don't go out there anymore. Story 7. I'm not the type of person who shares stuff like this, but I don't sleep the same anymore, so maybe writing it down will help. I live in Tucson, near the Air Force Base. Been here since I was a kid. My brother and I used to drive around at night just to get out of the house, kill time, windows down, radio off, letting the desert air come in. This happened about 2 years ago, but it feels like last night every time I think about it. We just gotten Circle K coffee and I was turning left at an empty intersection, and that's when we heard it. It wasn't loud at first, just a mechanical hum that turned into a throbbing vrm, vrm, vrm that made my chest buzz, like the air was vibrating around us. It was so clear because the road was dead silent, and we didn't have any music on. "Dude, do you hear that?" My brother leaned forward, looking around through the windshield. The sound was getting closer, coming up from behind us. I was about to say it was probably a chopper, but it didn't sound like one, and it felt like it was right on us, like something was breathing on the back of my neck. I slowed down, and that's when my brother practically climbed halfway out the passenger window. Bro, look, it's a fucking UFO." I slammed the brakes. It came over us so low that the streetlights lit the bottom of it. It was pitch black, matte, and silent except for that deep mechanical hum that made the metal of my car door feel like it was buzzing under my arm. At first it was shaped like a black triangle, and I thought it was a stealth bomber or something, but then it stopped, dead still in the air, and I saw parts of it move. The wings separated and dropped down, hanging off what looked like rods, and massive thrusters rotated with this deliberate, almost slow grace, like watching a machine breathe. I was gripping the wheel, staring straight up through the windshield while my brother kept saying, "Holy shit, holy shit, holy shit," over and over like a prayer. I couldn't answer him because I was frozen, just watching it. The thrusters rotated and the whole craft twisted in the air, making this sharp, controlled 180 over the two-story building next to us. It cleared the rooftop by maybe 10 feet, the tips of the wings passing right over the edge like it didn't even care how close it was. It was like watching a shark swim just under the surface, calm and slow, but you knew it could move fast if it wanted to. Then it snapped back into that triangle shape, and I swear, it disappeared. It didn't vanish, but it accelerated so hard it looked like it just blinked out, leaving a brief distortion in the air, like heat off asphalt, and the vroom went with it. We sat there in the middle of the road, both of us breathing so hard it was the only sound for a few seconds. Then my brother started freaking out, yelling that we needed to call the cops. I remember looking at him and saying, "What the hell are we going to tell them? We saw a UFO near the base?" He called anyway, hands shaking so bad he could barely type in the number, telling them we saw something flying low and fast, but I don't know what he expected. The dispatcher asked a few questions and told him they'd send a unit to check, but we never saw anyone show up. We drove home in silence. My brother kept looking out the window like he was expecting it to come back. Every time a plane flew over, he'd flinch, and I'd feel it in my chest, thinking it was coming back. That low hum would start again. Later that night, he couldn't sleep and ended up crashing on my floor, saying he felt like something was going to show up at his window. I couldn't sleep either. Every sound outside made me hold my breath. The thing is, it didn't look alien in the way you'd imagine, like saucers or lights. It looked engineered, like something built for war, like something the military would design if they didn't care what anyone saw, if they were testing something that wasn't supposed to be flying yet. But the way it moved, I can't explain it. It moved like it was alive, like it was thinking, like it knew exactly how close it could get to the rooftop without touching it. The way it changed shape wasn't mechanical like parts moving on a truck. It was like it was flexing, adjusting its body to switch from moving fast to hovering. I didn't sleep properly for weeks after that. I'd hear that hum in my head every night, thinking it was coming back. Sometimes I still hear it when I'm out driving alone, and I catch myself checking the mirrors, looking up at the sky, waiting. People like to joke about UFO sightings, but when you're sitting in your car under something like that, and you see it change shape and move in ways you can't explain, it doesn't feel like a joke. It feels like you're seeing something you're not supposed to, something that's above the rules you thought existed. I'm not saying it was aliens. I don't know what it was. Maybe it was military. Maybe it wasn't. But I know what I saw. I know how it felt. And I know that my brother and I both saw it, both heard it, both felt that buzzing in our bones as it hovered over us before shooting off into the sky like nothing. That's all there is to it. It happened once and it's never happened again. But it's enough. It's enough to change the way I look at the sky every single night. Story 8. I used to think people who talked about seeing UFOs were bored, lonely people looking for attention. I'm a network engineer, not the type you'd think would post about this. I live in Allen, Texas, a little north of Dallas, and back then, in 2011, I was living in a 2-bedroom duplex off Alma Drive, working late-night call-outs to keep routers online for a few hospitals. It was raining that night, that drizzly Texas rain that leaves a film on everything but doesn't cool the air down. I got home around 2:30 in the morning and changed out of my work shirt, letting the damp air in while I stepped out for a smoke before bed. I wasn't even thinking about anything, just standing there, streetlights reflecting off wet asphalt, the yellow glow of those old sodium lamps bouncing off low clouds. I was half listening to my buddy James on the phone ramble about a patch we were going to run on some servers the next week. It was the kind of call you make so you don't feel alone that late. It was when I turned toward the breeze that I saw it. At first, I thought it was a shadow. It came out of the north, cutting across the sky so low it felt like it should have knocked over the streetlights. It wasn't fast like a shooting star or a plane. It was steady, gliding, but moving, maybe 60 or 70 miles per hour, and it was massive. A black cube. I can't explain how wrong it felt to see it there, rotating slightly so one corner was pointed forward, drifting directly above the tree line. "James, hold up," I said. "Hold up, hold up, hold up, hold up." "What's wrong?" he asked, laughing at first until he heard in my voice that I wasn't messing around. "Dude, there's—" I couldn't finish. I stepped backward, the cigarette falling out of my mouth into a puddle. There was no sound, not the whisper of a jet, not the thump of a helicopter, just the breeze and that buzzing in your ears when it's too quiet. It looked like a carved black stone, like granite, with harsh, jagged edges. Along each edge was a border, and in the center of the side facing me, there was this circular design, like a maze you'd see on a piece of pottery, but wrong, shifting if you stared too long. The clouds were breaking around it, like it was pressing down on the air, the mist rolling off the edges, swirling behind it like smoke before vanishing. "James, go outside now," I said, choking on my own words. "Go outside right now. Look south." "What are you talking about? You're freaking me out, man," he said. But he listened, and I heard the door on his end creak open. I couldn't take my eyes off it. It was maybe 80 to 100 feet tall, moving over the street, over the roof of the duplex, heading toward the direction of 75, toward downtown Dallas. It was so close I could see texture, pits in the surface like it was made of something old and heavy. My hands were shaking so bad I almost dropped the phone. "There's nothing here," James said, standing in the rain a few miles south. "Just look," I yelled, backing into my door, fumbling to get my phone camera up. But it was too dark, and my hands wouldn't stop shaking, and I couldn't get it to focus on anything but blackness. It passed directly in front of me, and I felt something, like the air was being sucked out of the world, like static building in my bones, a pressure in my ears that made me swallow, trying to pop them. It felt like the sky was bending around it, like it didn't belong here, and everything in me was screaming to run, but I couldn't move. "Man, you're scaring me," James said, his voice small in the rain. And then it was gone, slipping back into the clouds, the mist closing around it like it had never been there at all. It didn't leave a trail, didn't leave a mark, didn't even move the trees as it passed over. The breeze picked up again, and I realized I was soaked in sweat, standing there shaking, the cigarette still smoldering in the puddle by my feet. I didn't say anything else to James. I hung up on him and stumbled inside, locking the door like that would do anything. I went to the kitchen and threw up in the sink, shaking, trying to convince myself I hadn't seen it, that it was a trick of the lights, a drone, something. But I know what I saw. I know what I saw. No lights, no hum, no blinking beacons like you see on planes, nothing. Just that heavy black cube sliding across the sky, and that symbol carved into it, like it was watching, like it was marking something, and I was the only one who saw it. I sat on the floor in my kitchen for hours, lights off, shaking, the rain starting up again outside, tapping against the window while I tried to breathe. I didn't sleep that night, and I couldn't stop going back outside, standing in the wet grass, scanning the sky, waiting for it to come back, but it never did. I spent years searching Black Cube UFO, looking for someone, anyone, who saw what I saw that night. I found a few stories, a few sketches, but nothing that matched exactly. People laugh when I tell them. They think I was drunk, sleep-deprived, seeing things. But I wasn't drunk, and I wasn't tired, and I know what I saw. It's the worst part, knowing there's something up there, something that can move over your house, over your street, over your city, without a sound, without anyone else seeing it, and there's nothing you can do about it. Story 9. I hadn't even planned on being outside that night. We just finished dinner, and my mom was washing dishes while I was messing with my phone on the couch. We lived in a quiet part of North Texas, the kind of neighborhood where the yards are big and the houses are far apart, and the only sounds at night are crickets and the occasional dog barking down the road. My dad had gone out back to take out the trash, and a few seconds later, he yelled for me. Not the usual, "come here" tone, but the kind that made your stomach drop. I remember glancing at my mom, and she had stopped scrubbing the plate, just looking at me. "What?" I yelled back. "Come out here now!" I didn't even put shoes on. I stepped onto the back porch, and I remember the air felt weird, like it was too still. My dad was standing in the grass, looking up, and his mouth was hanging open. I followed his gaze, and there it was. It was just sitting there, hovering above our backyard, maybe 100 feet up, low enough that you could see the details. It was massive, at least the size of a small house, round, with these dull, circular lights pulsing around the bottom. It wasn't bright like the movies, more like this pale white glow that made the trees underneath look colorless. I didn't know what to do, and neither did my dad. We just stood there. My heart was hammering so hard I could hear it in my ears, and I kept thinking, this isn't real. This isn't real. It wasn't making any sound, not even a hum. It was dead silent. "Dad?" I whispered. He didn't answer. He just kept staring. I don't think I've ever seen him look scared before that moment. Then I saw movement. Underneath it, like these faint ripples in the air, as if the air itself was bending under it. It shifted, almost like it was adjusting its position, and one of the lights turned slightly, pointing straight down. I felt something like static crawling on my arms, raising the hair on the back of my neck. My dad took a step back. "Go inside," he said low, without taking his eyes off it. I didn't move. "Go inside now." But I didn't. I couldn't. My legs felt locked. That's when my sister came running out, holding my dad's old camera, shouting, "Take a picture! Take a picture!" And the moment she said that, the lights on the thing pulsed faster, like it reacted to her voice. "Dad, it's doing something," I said. I don't know how to explain this next part without sounding crazy, but the air felt heavy, like it was pressing down on my chest. I felt a low vibration, like a subwoofer rumbling, but it wasn't sound. It was inside my body. My dad grabbed my arm and he yelled, "Inside now!" He started pulling me, but I turned my head back just before we reached the door. That's when I saw it. Underneath the disc, something came down. It wasn't solid, more like a thin beam of pale light, but not light either. It was almost like liquid air, rippling. Inside that ripple, for a split second, I saw shapes. Small shapes, like shadows moving inside it. Fast, shifting, impossible to focus on. It felt like the world held its breath. And then, in less than a second, the beam snapped back, and the disc tilted slightly, rotating so smoothly it was unnatural. I remember my dad slamming the back door, and the sound made me flinch. We all crowded at the window looking out. It started moving, slow at first, gliding above the yard, past the trees, and then it shot off, gone in a blink. No sound, no trail, nothing. The silence afterward was the loudest thing I've ever heard. My sister was crying. My dad was just standing there, breathing heavy, staring at the empty sky. I couldn't stop shaking. "I got nothing," my sister whispered, looking at the camera. It didn't take. My dad turned and I saw him trying to get himself together. "Don't tell your mom everything, okay? Don't scare her." But we didn't have to tell her because she came outside and she saw the way we looked, the way we were trembling. She just knew. We went inside, locked every door, and my dad sat in the kitchen with the lights off for hours, staring at nothing, gripping his beer so hard his knuckles were white. My sister and I didn't sleep that night. Every time a car passed or a branch creaked, I thought it was back. Story 10. I never told anyone this, not even my mom. It's weird, but I don't think I ever wanted to see the look on her face if she knew what I saw that night. I'm 34 now, but I still remember every detail like it's burned into me. I grew up in a cracked old apartment complex in Pontiac, Michigan, the kind of place where the walls sweat in summer and you can hear every argument your neighbors have through thin drywall. My mom worked nights cleaning offices in the city, so I was left alone more than I should have been. I was 9, maybe 10 when it happened. It was one of those humid nights when the air felt like it was pressing on you. I had a fan on, pointed straight at my face, rattling on my dresser. I remember lying there with the streetlight glow leaking through the blinds, making lines on the wall. I wasn't scared of being alone back then. The noise of the city made it feel less empty. I woke up, or maybe I wasn't asleep yet, but I opened my eyes because the room felt wrong. You ever get that? Like the room's the same, But it's not. The fan had stopped. I could still hear the outside noise. Cars, someone yelling far off. But the air felt too still, too heavy, like the room was holding its breath. That's when I saw it. It was standing in front of my bedroom door, near the light stripes on the wall. It was taller than me, but not by much, thin, almost bony. Its skin was this pale, sickly greenish white, like the belly of a fish. And it had these big black eyes. They weren't shiny like in movies. They looked flat, like dull glass. I couldn't move. I don't mean like I was scared and couldn't move. I mean I could not move. My arms were locked against my sides under the blanket, and I could barely turn my head. I could feel tears leaking down the sides of my face, but I couldn't wipe them. My chest was tight, like something was sitting on me. I don't know why, but I managed to whisper, "Who are you?" My voice was small and scratchy, and it didn't even sound like me. It didn't talk with its mouth. It was in my head. A voice, but not a voice. It said, "You will understand someday." It didn't sound comforting. It didn't sound angry either. It was just empty. It raised its long hand, and its fingers were too thin, almost like sticks, and it started drawing on the wall with its fingertip. These lines started glowing where it touched. They were like crooked shapes, kind of like letters, but I didn't recognize any of them. They glowed soft blue at first, then brightened to this cold white, almost hurting my eyes in the dark. I wanted to scream for my mom, but I couldn't open my mouth. I wanted to hide under the blanket, but I couldn't move. I could hear my own heartbeat, too loud in my ears, like it was shaking my head. The lines on the wall kept growing, spreading toward the ceiling, and I felt this pressure in my head, like something was pushing inside, looking for something. I asked it in my head, "What does it mean?" It answered, "You will know." Then everything blinked. That's the only way I can explain it. 1 second, it was there. Glowing lines, the cold feeling, the heavy air, and the next I was sitting up in bed, gasping like I'd been underwater. The fan was on again, buzzing like it always did, and the streetlight was still leaking through the blinds, making the same lines on the wall. Except the lines it drew were gone. The wall was just the same as always. Cracked paint, a thumbtack stuck in the drywall from a poster I'd taken down, nothing else. I ran to the bathroom and threw up in the sink. I was shaking so hard I thought I was going to pass out. I checked my arms and legs, my face in the mirror, to see if anything was wrong with me. Nothing was. I was just a kid in sweatpants crying in a dirty bathroom while the pipes clanged behind the walls. When my mom came home that morning, I didn't tell her. She had that tired look, hair tied back, hands dry from chemicals, shoulders slumped from the weight of everything. I couldn't put that on her. So I sat at the table, eating cereal while she talked about the rude security guy at the office building, and I pretended everything was normal. But it wasn't normal, because after that night, I kept seeing those shapes in my head when I closed my eyes. Not all the time, but sometimes, like a flash when I was in class or when I was about to fall asleep. I still don't know what they mean, and I don't think I want to. One time when I was 14, I tried drawing them. I was in the back of my math notebook just sketching them out line by line, exactly as I saw them. My hand was shaking so bad the pencil broke. I tore the page out and burned it in the kitchen sink. It smelled like burnt hair. I don't know if it was a dream. I keep telling myself it was just a dream, but it doesn't feel like it. Even now I can feel that heavy air when I think about it, like the room is pressing down again, like I'm 9 years old and can't move. I don't sleep with the lights off anymore.